Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the beautiful Monza Grand Prix circuit for this, the opening round of the GT World Challenge Esports Europe Sprint Series. The first race of 10 incredibly exciting, action-packed races ahead in the SRO Esports Series World. My name is Paul Jeffrey. I'll be talking you through the action alongside, I am delighted to say, the voice of all things that are noisy and go fast, Mr. David Addison.
Paul, good evening, and what a race we have in store, because it is one of those entry lists that is just outstanding, not only because it goes on to 2 pages, so many entries have we got, but you go through it and there are names that we know from previous SRO championships with great success, from other championships with great success, be it GT racing or in the case of the driver that's been fastest in qualifying, David Tonizza, Formula One, of course, Esports World Champion 2 seasons ago. So not only is it a quality entry, that in turn is going to knock on to what should be an absolutely outstanding race with huge variety as well in terms of teams and brands on the grid.
Yeah, we've got a fantastic entry list. We're just looking at this now. Chris Hooker in the Renwelton Pro Team Porsche heads the entry list. We see Gianni Di Salvo, the reigning Ferrari Esports Series champion as well. Jeremy Butlu, another name that many will recognise, representing VRS Coanda Simsport in Germany. A very, very fast driver we expect to see plenty of as the season progresses. Kevin Sigge in Team Redline for the McLaren 720S GT3 is another highly decorated esport driver in the world of virtual motorsport, so watch out for Kevin Sigge as the race progresses. Lucas Muller as well for the Hapt racing team, so Hapt making another appearance in the world of virtual motorsport, this time with the Mercedes AMG GT3. James Baldwin, anybody who watched the British GT Esports Series will recognise that name as the champion, and of course world's fastest gamer and GT driver in the virtual world. Dennis Gravoski, private entry in an Aston Martin Vantage AMR GT3 as well. Tim Jarshell, a returning name to the eSport SRO world. Ayanori Rose for Jeanne-Alesi Esports Academy in the Honda NSX is our female racer. Another VRS Coanda Simsport driver, Tommy Osgaard from the Real World and iRacing as well. And Nils Naujoks, the GT4 champion in the recent British GT Championship. Josh Rogers, another incredibly fast VRS Coanda Simsport driver representing the Porsche 911 GT3R. And Attila Denks and Amir Hassani, 2 names I am sure our viewers will recognise from the SRO Esports Series last season, should be very much at the top end of the grid. As David mentioned, David Tonizza for the FDA Esports team is the 2019 Formula One Esports World Champion in his debut season for Ferrari. Gianfranco Giglioli, another driver that we have seen plenty of in virtual motorsport over the course of the last couple of years. Mikhail Stetsenko for Yasheet in the Audi returns again to SRO Esport competition. He was a prominent driver in the AM series back in 2020, so expect the Russian driver to be very much towards the front of the field as this season progresses. Kevin Ciccolari for Racing Line Motorsports in the big old Bentley GT3 is another key name to look out for in what is a grid stacked with driving talent, experience and speed across a number of different sims. Igor Orognikov, a name I'm delighted to see because it took me ages to learn how to pronounce it, so any opportunity I get I shall use. Is driving the Aston Martin Vantage for Lada Sport Rosenef, and Lucas Schmidt for the Bentley Continental GT3, and Arthur Camera as well for BMW, the official Works BMW team with G2 Esports, are other incredibly talented drivers to look out for. And David, as you said at the beginning of the show, what a grid. 45 drivers, 11 manufacturers representing 28 teams, and honestly you could stick a pin in who you think could win this race. It could be anybody.
Absolutely right, because all of these factors, as you say, Paul, you've got the quality entry, you've got the variety of the brands, and which will work better around Monza. We know that aero-friendly cars always go well around here. Step forward Ferrari or Lamborghini. But it's also a hot day, and tyre wear could well be a factor. Are we going to see people running to perhaps 9/10 of the pace and preserving tyres, or losing time in the pits and doing a tyre change, but then going to be able to be flat out towards the end of the race in that second stint? We'll find out. But there are different ways of playing this, and it could well be that even those that have qualified further down the order than they would like aren't necessarily going to be compromised by that, partly because this is a great circuit for slipstreaming, but also with the pit stops, with the strategy, and possibly, as I say, tyre wear. And also, just think about fuel. You have to add a minimum of 1 litre, but if you didn't have to do that, fuel could be a factor. So would you need more than that minimum of 1 litre in the pit stop? Discuss. There are lots of opportunities for the order to shuffle. I don't think anybody can go into this thinking they've got the right strategy, because they just don't know yet. It's a real step into the unknown for pretty much everybody.
Fantastic stuff, and a very good point well made there, David, about the strategy. Just to give everybody at home a little idea of what to expect today, firstly, hello and welcome. This is a 60-minute semi-endurance race. There is a mandatory pit window. It lasts for 10 minutes. During that pit window, the drivers must come down pit lane and, at a minimum, put 1 litre of fuel in the car. As David suggested, you could put more in if you so desire, run light, fill up at the stop, but you'll be stationary for longer and giving up track position. And in terms of the track itself, we've got a very warm day indeed here in Monza, so tyre wear is going to come into play. We're looking at 29 degrees C ambient temperature, 39 on track, and David, as I'm sure you've seen many times before at Monza, when you start losing the grip from those tyres, if you're pushing too hard too soon, you're a sitting duck to be overtaken on corner exit and the following long straights.
Well, absolutely, and there is one of those areas that is always demanding at Monza, because you've got to have good stopping power and you've got to have good traction out of it. The first chicane, run down the long, fast pit straight into the chicane itself. Now, if you are struggling coming out of any of the slow chicanes, you are, as you suggest, Paul, an absolute sitting duck. So you've got to be really careful not to abuse the tyres, especially if you're in a battle. Now, what do? Do you push hard early on and try and build up a gap to preserve fuel and tyres late in the race, or do you run to this plan? It's just going to be a really fascinating situation when we do get to the start of the race. But of course, even before they can start to think, okay, we're in a rhythm now, let's work out what we do with pace relative to tyre wear, relative to fuel consumption, they've got to get through that first chicane, the Rettifilo, which is always a pinch point. And you've said the magic number, it's over 40. They've all got to get into the first chicane. More importantly, Paul, they've all got to get out.
Yeah, that cannot be overstated enough during the start of this broadcast. It is a pinch point. It's a very difficult corner or section of corners to start any motor race, and with 45 drivers, it is going to be incredibly difficult to clear that corner. And qualification was only 15 minutes long, so you're going to see some drivers that would maybe think they've got enough pace to be a little bit further up the field, starting a bit compromised and trying to make that gap in the first lap or first few corners of the lap. So yeah, this could go one of two ways, I think, David.
You and I have talked as well in the past about the size of grids relative to the length of a circuit. Now, Monza is a good length of a lap, but 45 drivers on that circuit, traffic is going to be an issue after the first handful of racing laps, and particularly once that pit window opens, because you could be in splendid isolation in the race in your first stint, but you could be released back into traffic, which could really compromise you in terms of being able to pull away from or catch up to a rival. So the two elements of the race, either side of the pit stop, could be rather different for you, couldn't they?
Yeah, that's very true. We've seen that in the recent British GT season that we both commentated against, that some of the drivers elect to come in right at the very start of that pit window, and then they've got the maximum amount of time to deal with whatever scenario presents itself, and some leave it right to the very, very end to then try and get some track position and understand. The problem you've got is, if you come in early, you may well come back out onto the circuit with drivers that are further down the running order that have not made their stop, and naturally they're a little bit slower than you are. So, as you say, the strategic element is more than just getting in the car and going as quick as you can. It's also being intelligent enough to plan around your race and your track position with others, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, the one thing that this championship has, which is different from the most recent one that you and I call British GT, is that we're only looking at GT3 spec cars. So you haven't got that disparity between the two classes. It's a single class GT3 tournament. Therefore, you won't have that disparity with the traffic, but equally it's very hard to get through the traffic because the balance of performance works so well that everybody is really evenly matched. This is going to be a really, really good race. There's no argument about that. And as you say, it could be anybody's. Picking a winner, you just take the entry list and a pin, don't you, and insert one into the other.
It is indeed. I mean, we'll look at the starting grid in a few moments' time, but just to give the folks at home a bit of an idea, 45 cars on the grid, separated by 1.1 seconds.
So there is the grid. Let's have a wander down, and you see lining up on pole position, David Tonizza aboard number 95, and with him at the front of the grid in 11, that is Kevin Ziggy. On the second row of the grid, you've got Giovanni Di Salvo in number 4, the reigning Ferrari Esports champion, and lining up alongside in 81 is Josh Rogers with the very rapid Porsche. 420 should come next on the grid, that being Eamon Murphy, who is another experienced esports racer with the Yas Heat McLaren. And then to line up 6th on the grid is Amir Hosseini, who again showed great pace around here well over 12 months ago in the very first SRO Esports event, the Charity Challenge. Number 5, Porsche, comes next. That is Martin Krunke. And lining up alongside him is Niels Naujoks. There's not much he hasn't won in sim racing terms. British GT4 champion in the Esports Championship that finished a month ago, and he's back to see if he can take another title. 2080 is next. James Baldwin, the GT3 champion in British GT, world's fastest gamer, and it is Davide Chiesa who lines up alongside in Treble 2, the Honda NSX from Racing Line Motorsport. 23 is next on the grid. They're the Mercedes of Lucas Müller. And to line up alongside is Luca Lossio with his Ferrari. He should be a man I would have thought to make some progress. 53 is next on the grid. Tim Yarshel with the MRS Sports McLaren. And 52 alongside in the Unicorns of Love entered Mercedes is Tobias Grunewald. That wins the best entrant of the night, that's for sure. Number 2, Porsche, Chris Hooker. On the inside of the next row of the grid, and 99 is alongside Leonardo Dalcamo for company, the Jean Alesi Esports Academy driver. 89 comes next on the grid, Attila Denks with his BMW, and alongside is 38, Darren King, with another of the Honda NSXs that we have in the race. 324, next row of the grid, Tobias Pfeffer with the Audi R8 that is ran through the R8G Esports stable. And number 567, Corrado Ceriello with the Mercedes alongside. 72 on the next row of the grid, you'll see, is Gregor Schill with his BMW, another experienced driver. 97, Gianfranco Giglioli comes next alongside him. Then you've got, I should have said Giuseppe Giratana is next. Then you have Erone Rose and Gianfranco Giglioli alongside. 747 Arthur Camera, a long way back on the grid with 197 Dennis DeMarco for company. Then you've got 148 Alexandra Herbigno and number 10 of Dominic Blyer. 69 Moreno Sirica lines up alongside 144 Mikhail Stachenko. And then you have number 34 Dennis Schoeniger and 31 Hamada Ekwitsi next on the grid. There you can see number 144, which is Mikhail Statsenko's car. Dennis Schoeniger next on the grid. You see 31 Hamada Ekwitsi to line up alongside. 64 comes next, Marek Schintz, and number 7, well, the Bentley's getting themselves together there. Number 7 is Jeremy Vuteloup. 191 next is Kevin Ciclari, a long way back for him. 27 Jan Onorati for company alongside. 29 Lamborghini, Matteo Blotto, and 410 of Egor Ogorodnikov. 911 should be a Porsche, really a Bentley. Luca Schmidt is next on the grid with 120 Jordan Grant Smith's Porsche alongside. A long way back is 58 Tommy Oscar, a real world as well as sim racer, but he's got 41 Dennis Grabowski alongside. 94 Johan Ofella is next with 44 Arthur Zarnecki, and to round out the grid 83 Luca Tosato, the one that did not go out in qualifying, another of the Lexus in fact, Joe McCauley. So if he does start, it'll be from the pit lane. That is an absolutely astounding grid. It stretches right the way up the pit straight, and it gives an idea of who starts where. It should all be very different though, Paul, by the end of the opening lap, shouldn't it?
I would imagine so, and just to give a little bit of an indication of how competitive this field is, Lutato is an incredible driver, and almost any given sport event you could wish to participate in, you would expect him to be very least down to 28 cars. At Monza, it is easier to have closer laps, but that is competitive beyond imagination, isn't it? And as you say, we've said it 2 or 3 times, I'm going to say it a 4th, you could literally pick any one of these drivers to take away the trophy and not be surprised at their success.
Yeah, and the other fascination in this is going to be to see those that have qualified badly working their way forward. Green flag lap is underway, so an opportunity now to try and generate a bit of warmth into the Pirelli rubber. Of course, you've got real world tyre data, real world balance of performance built into the Assetto Corsa platform. So this is about as realistic a Monza GT race as you can have. It's an hour sprint. There's a mandatory pit stop. 25 to 35 minutes is the window. They must take on 1 litre of fuel. Now we can try and work out from the pit stop times who has done more than that, whether it's tyres or extra fuel. But we won't know that really until they leave the pit lane and we see people ride. The lights will change. The timing line, the finish line is what they're coming up to now. The start line further down the pit straight. So now the speed starts to build as the drivers get themselves ready for the lights to change, which they do now. And Kevin Siggy moves right across on Giovanni Di Salvo. He got jumped for the race lead and he's left the door wide open for Josh Rogers on the outside line of the Porsche. They try to go 3, almost 4 wide, look down towards the chicane. And this is where the whole thing could come to a great big mess. Josh Rogers hits the front on the outside line, but he's never going to make the corner. He scrabbles out wide. Kevin Siggy gets ahead of him. Rogers actually did a good job to make it. You've got cars on the grass. You've got cars facing the wrong way. There is contact. There's one in the gravel. There is, as predicted, Paul, mayhem at the first corner of the championship.
Yeah, would you believe it? We're at Monza and there's been a T1 accident, but at the front of the field, the racing has been incredibly intense. And David Tonizza, pole position man, drops down to 3rd position, tries to dive up the inside to retake that 2nd place. Nothing doing at this stage in the race, but exactly what we spoke about, David. Bad start, strategy, now upside down.
Yeah, Tonizza then getting mugged on the run down to turn 1 as you see 89 BMW of Attila Denks go through the BS Plus competition car, and he's coming under attack as well. Look, Chris Herker, who doesn't seem to miss an SRO Esports race. He's glued to the back of him as the cars now run their way through the second of the Lesmo Benz. Then the speed building as they head towards the Ascari chicane. 1 or 2 way out wide there, flirting with the gravel on the outside line. But actually, despite the dramas at turn 1, pretty much everybody, I think, has survived. There are 1 or 2 that have dropped back, but we'll pick up the order at the end of the lap. We've had another drama at turn 2, though, in fact, going to the Curva Grande. And so that may well, again, shuffle the order yet further as the leaders now blast down to the Parabolica to end lap 1. One of the McLarens there being squeezed out way wide. But it is Kevin Siggy, Josh Rogers the 1-2, David Tonizza down to 3rd, Abel Murphy 4th, Amir Hosseini 5th, and it's James Baldwin 6th as we put 1 lap in the book at Monza.
Fantastic drama at the start of this race. I also notice on the timing screens that I cannot see. Oh, I can. Gianni Di Salvo drops to 9th position. So the Ferrari Driver Academy racer, 3rd on the grid at the start, drops to 9th. So a difficult start for the Ferraris. But we've still got 58 minutes to go. So plenty of time to recover that one as we see a great slipstream train here.
Absolutely. And this is further proof of the need for a good run through the chicane, because if you get a tow, you arrive so much faster than anybody else. Then you've got to try and slow that down the car to the outside line there. Look, goes Darren King in the Honda, and he did that really well indeed. So Darren King jumps a place, gets up ahead of Attila Denks, but that was really nicely done. He got a tow. He also found the real estate on the outside line, but crucially was able to slow the car enough to get through the chicane without drama.
Yeah, Attila Denks on the attack again, trying to reclaim that position. We see 2-3 cars in the background off into the gravel. Get your bucket and spades out because your racing is over. And Denks makes contact, so scruffy there from Attila Denks. Doesn't seem to have the stopping power, David, as the other cars in the BMW.
And more drama. Porsche of Chris Herker fired across the road into the barrier. He's been hit as he bounces back onto the road. So, big drama then on this, only the 2nd lap of the race. Part of it coming out of the Curva Grande, part of it at the Variante della Roggia. Well, these are sim racing experts, aren't they? Racing at the highest level, and yet they are still finding themselves in strife. We've lost Matteo Blotto. He's had problems, and also Statsenko has been caught up in dramas, as to Arthur Camara. So some of the big names in strife, Paul.
Yeah, this is exactly what we said at the start of the show. You have a suboptimal qualification, you're running in the heat of the battle, the danger zone in the middle of the pack, and it can all go very wrong indeed. So those 3 drivers that you mentioned struggling now further down the running order, and yeah, not what you want them to achieve at this stage in the race, because it's an hour race, David. There's plenty of racing still to do, so everybody just needs to calm down a little bit, I think, and just enjoy the bit of real estate they've got. Just work out where their car's strong and weak compared to the rivals, and work their way in good time as the race progresses.
Tommy Osgaard started 41st and he's up to 26th, so he's been able to bypass some of the strife. It's playing into his hands, so Osgaard remains one, I think, to watch as we head into the second part of the race after the pit stops to see what further progress can be made. But he's going nicely at the moment. Niels Naujok's down in 7th. Don't rule him out either, because he is so experienced, isn't he? He'll know exactly when to hold and when to fold.
Yeah, exactly. Naujok's already making up a couple of places from his starting position. BMW, though, interesting to see when we saw Oscar being overtaken earlier on, whether it was just his car and his setup, the BMW doesn't look as confident on the brakes as some of the cars around it. So it'll be interesting. If you have a car that can't brake particularly well at a track like Monza, you're giving up lap time, but you're also giving up your best overtaking opportunities. So we're very interested to see as Josh Rogers now on his toes trying to chase down Kevin Siggy for the lead.
Doing a good job, isn't he now, Josh Rogers then? So it's Porsche a 1/10 of a second back from Kevin Siggy in the McLaren, nose to tail down towards the Ascari chicane. David Tonizza in 3rd. Now, is he struggling in terms of pace, or is he thinking now that he'll just let this battle develop and pick up any pieces? He knows he's got just under 55 minutes of the race to go. He doesn't have to get involved, he just has to stay with them. But they could well be holding each other up very shortly, and that will bring him back into the mix. Eamon Murphy 4th, is dropping away a little bit, but Rogers is a man on a mission. The Porsche all over the back of the McLaren, into the Parabolica, up towards the end of that 3 now.
Gents, move to Discord feed, please.
Yeah, Rogers is not quite as competitive in terms of lap times in that Porsche as the race leader, but does seem to be doing a good job in the slipstream, trying to keep with the McLaren, trying to use the slipstream to his advantage, David, as he attacks now down into T1.
Nose to tail then as they break for the corner, into the right, into the left-handed element, riding the curb there, Kevin Siggy, but not able to get away from Rogers. He's doing a good job of defending, but he just has not got the pace to get away at the moment, has he? The two of them nose to tail now as they make then through the right-hander of the Curva Grande, out wide slightly. There goes the McLaren, but you can see the way that Ziggy's having to stick out his elbows now and fend off the Porsche, which is all over him like a cheap suit. Brake late into the chicane, and look, Tonizza is with them, so it's very nearly 3 for the lead now. This is what I was suggesting half a lap back, that if they hold each other up for the race lead, it will bring Tonizza back into the mix. Out wide they both go, and you can see Tonizza is chipping away. He's only about 2 lengths back now. Rogers has got himself a little bit stuck. He's done the hard yards of catching. He can't find a way through, and if he's not careful, he'll have to go defensive to keep the Ferrari at bay.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said earlier, David. Tonizza's keeping a watching brief on these two, trying to see if they can trip each other up, looking after the car, looking after the tyres. It's a hot day here in Monza, as we said, so maintaining the balance of your car during the course of the stint is going to be vital to be fast at the end of the race. So David Tonizza, 3rd position at the moment, but in the pound seats as the race progresses.
So the two of them then nose to tail, down they come into the Parabolica. Rogers goes for the inside line there, can't do it, and look, Tonizza is almost on his tail now. It is just about 3 for the lead as they turn their way out of the Parabolica. And Rogers is the one in this invidious position. He's having to attack and defend now as they come up over the timing line. Tonizza, interestingly, given his pace in the qualifying session, just loses out a little bit. He doesn't benefit from a tow there, Paul, does he? He's close, but he's not getting any closer to them.
Yeah, they've not quite got enough grunt, I don't think, in that Porsche at this stage in the race. The McLaren, as you've said at the start of the show, very slippery design by nature, very fast car in the world of GT3 racing. So just got the legs on the Porsche at the moment. And again, as these two fight, David Tonizza not working his car, not working his tyres, saving a little bit of fuel as well, ever closer. So Tonizza very much in the right position at this stage in the race, but if these two get involved in an instant, hold each other up, all of a sudden, before you know it, Murphy in 4th place is going to be well in the fight as well.
So we have then the lead battle coming through with the McLaren just ahead of the Porsche. They run a little bit wide up the curb there, nose to tail once more, and look, just up the road there is traffic. So life wasn't hard enough for Kevin Siggy right now. It's going to get even worse. Rogers now pulls to the inside line. Is he going to be able to make that move? Side by side they run down towards the Ascari chicane. He doesn't quite have the grunt to get alongside there, so he has to slot back in behind. Tonizza is right with him. So Siggy is under attack. Rogers is attacking and defending. There's traffic up the road, and David Tonizza is starting now to become ever more of a factor.
Oh, this is so frustrating for the Porsche of Rogers. He knows overall, over the course of a lap, he's got good pace, but he made one half-measure move on Kevin Siggy, didn't have enough straight line speed, and now look, instantly, click of her fingers, David Tonizza all over the back of that Porsche, and suddenly he's in a defensive position, and up ahead, Kevin Sigley thanking his lucky stars. Now's time to get the pedal to the metal and try and gap these two fighting cars in second and third.
So over the timing line they go once more, 5 laps in the book, and that time around Kevin Siggy with 7/10 of a second's worth of an advantage. That's huge compared to what he had for the last few corners. Good battle going on there. Davide Chiesa battling with Lucas Muller. Also in the mix there you've got number 5, which is the Martin Krunke Porsche. And it's like a rolling start. Side by side, they drop down towards the Rettifilio chicane. The Porsche, look, that of Martin Krunke on its toes as he tries to get back up ahead of the Mercedes of Lucas Muller. And he's on the outside line. He's got his nose in front and he's just done it.
Oh, what these are fabulous scenes. I'm going to take a moment out of the racing action just to say how incredible it is to be watching these drivers in this simulation, in this race, absolutely on the limit, fighting for positions like a NASCAR race, slotted in and out of place as they use the slipstream. It's just incredible scenes, and so far so good. We've had some great racing. A few early instance. Nils Naujoks that we spoke about has dropped down in a 7th position just behind Giovanni Di Salvo in P7, and still this is very much anybody in the top 20 can still consider themselves very much in the fight for this race. We're only 10 minutes down.
Indeed, and we've got the pit stops to come, and he says, tempting fate, we are 5 laps in and I haven't seen anything in the penalties chat, and I haven't seen any in-game penalties applied to drivers either. So despite the incidents that we have had in the race thus far, it is a good, clean race in terms of penalties. And there, having just said that, you've got one for Thomas Yarshall. I knew I was tempting fate. So 16th place, a drive-through, and is that an in-game penalty? Either way, it's going to cost him, isn't it?
Yeah, that's that's comedic timing there, David. Congratulations. But Yarshall, drive-through penalty, so run through the pit lane without stopping. That's going to cost him significant amounts of time as Josh Rogers now on the attack.
Indeed, to the outside line, down towards the Rettifilio chicane, and the Porsche then brakes late. He gets his nose in front. Now, can he stop and get round the corner? He's going to get forced out wide. There could be contact here. He just got away without contact, but then slowed himself down enough to bring back into the mix David Tonizza. And now we have penalties coming. You see, tempted fate. Tim Yarshall gets a drive-through for an incident that involved Chris Herker. That was the one we saw, wasn't it, when he got involved with Herker up at the Roger chicane, this element of the circuit, and turfed him off into the barrier. So it wasn't for track limits, it was for a very definite incident.
Yep, shame there for Tim Yarshall. That's made his day very difficult now for the next 48 minutes once he serves that drive-through, which he does, as I speak, jump down pit lane. Remember at home, folks, that will not count towards his mandatory stops. He'll still have to visit pit road again before the conclusion of this race. But now look, Josh Rogers, having dropped back 7/10 of a second, has found his way immediately to the back of Kevin Siggy's McLaren, but just doesn't have those horses to get past.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, this underlines again as Rogers has a look up the inside line for the race lead at the Ascari chicane, and he can't quite do it. How the BOP works, because the cars are so evenly matched. That McLaren, that Porsche, they are trading tenths of a second, but neither can get away from the other. So Ziggy has the race lead, but he can't get away. Rogers can't find a way past him. He doesn't have that last tenth in pure pace, and right now he's got a massive pain in the backside called David Tonizza, who has arrived at the party as well. 3 for the lead out of the Parabolica, so evenly matched. This is going to be won or lost on the pit stops, I reckon.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. The slipstream as well playing a big part in this race. While Tonizza remains in 3rd position, he's getting the benefit of slipstream from not 1 but 2 cars ahead of him. That's helping his fuel mileage. That's pulling him down the straight. Look how much overrun the Ferrari has coming into the first chicane.
But he's not alongside the Porsche. He's certainly not alongside the McLaren, and Tonizza, with 47 minutes still to go, is certainly knowing what to do, and that is back out of it. You've showed intent, let the others fight. If they make a mistake, you can pounce. If that were the last lap of the race, it would have been worth getting stuck in, but he did exactly the right thing there. He backed out of it, and look, he's able at this early stage still to lose a couple of lengths. He knows he's going to get those back because of the way they're scrapping ahead of him. He does not have to risk anything. Just keep an eye on Eamon Murphy, though, in 4th place. He's only 1.4 seconds back, and he is closing as well. It won't be long before we're talking about 4 for the race lead.
Sensational stuff. Now, I know we're looking a bit far into the future at this stage, but is Josh Rogers' best opportunity to do whatever Kevin Siggy doesn't do during the pit window? Because it's looking increasingly difficult, despite the pace advantage, to force his way back on track as they're closer than ever before.
Let's have a look first of all and see whether this is going to be a change for the lead. Rogers tried the inside a lap ago and it came to naught. He tries the outside line this time. Same answer, but Tonizza, oh so nearly committed to the inside line, had a cheeky look and then thought better of it as they come now out of the Ascari chicane, ride the curb, back onto the power once more, down towards the Parabolica. It's only a 10-minute window as we keep making the point. So who is going to be the first one to blink? That's the other element. Yes, you could do the opposite of what Kevin Siggy does, but you need to commit to that pretty early. Down to the inside line, and Rogers finally gets it done, but he's going to go out wide. Siggy back up the inside line. He should get the lead back, and Tonizza will get second as well. He could even get the race lead. Look, 3 abreast. Out of the Parabolica, in the middle is Kevin Siggy. On one side of him, the Porsche of Josh Rogers. On the inside line is David Tonizza. And now, absolutely dead set level, down towards the Rettifilio chicane. Who is it going to be? Who's the last of the late breakers? It is going to be on the inside line, Tonizza, who will go from third to first. Brilliant bit of driving.
Absolutely sensational stuff. David Tonizza, ever the hunter, waits for his opportunity, saw the chance, went straight through the door and takes the race lead. Kevin Siggy just about holding on, and once again Josh Rogers is on the attack but can't find a way past that black and orange McLaren. Brilliant stuff, and now Eamon Murphy is very much in the fight as well, so 3 become 4.
So the battle rages on as, again, Kevin Siggy has to keep defending from Josh Rogers. Trouble is now it's for second place. Eamon Murphy is almost with them. Another drive-through penalty for Lucas Schmidt in the Bentley for avoidable contact as the cars accelerate out of the Lesmo Benz. What's going to be interesting now is to see whether Tonizza can get away while Siggy still has to defend from Rogers. In turn, Rogers soon is going to have to defend from Murphy, isn't he? 5th is Hosseini, 6th is DeSalvo, Baldwin is 7th, now Yox is 8th, Chiesa 9th, and Krunker in 10th place. Tonizza edging away ever so slightly, look, as again Rogers commits to the inside line, breaks as late as he dares. There's a rub between the two of them, and Kevin Siggy, I don't know how he does it, but again he manages to fend off the Porsche.
This has got to be the widest McLaren in the history of the world, and Josh Rogers will be becoming increasingly frustrated. He can see Murphy's sister McLaren behind him as well, so Rogers now the meat in the McLaren sandwich. He knows he's got to pull the trigger, he's got to make this move stick as soon as possible, because Tonizza has already found half a second in just 1 lap, so David Tonizza is going to start running away at the front of the field, and the longer this fight lasts, David, the further detached these cars are becoming from that Ferrari, so Rogers is in a make or break situation at the moment.
He's got to get on with this, because now you can see Siggy is the cork in the bottle, really. You can see how much his defensive driving is holding up him and Rogers. Rogers now goes through on the inside. He's tried that before and finally he's made it stick. Eamon Murphy 4th and the McLaren is right there as well. But all of a sudden now Rogers has got to try and make up 1.3 seconds. It's quite a margin between them as the cars dive once more through the Curva Grande.
And I think Kevin Siggy there may have conceded that position. I think he's realised that the fighting is holding him up. He's putting himself in a risky position because he needs the points, obviously, for the championship. He also wants the top 5 to ensure he's guaranteed a slot at Paul Ricard on June the 11th. And I think Kevin Siggy took the diplomatic, the sensible approach there. Saw Rogers were alongside, realised this is not something that can continue at this velocity, and just conceded, and is going to settle down now and try and find his natural rhythm and see if he can keep with the Porsche.
So as the cars accelerate their way down once more towards the Ascari chicane, Josh Rogers is hard at work to see now whether or not he can do anything about Tonizza. We've done 9 laps. We have had, therefore, very nearly 20 minutes. Pit window opens at 25, but the battle pack for second place is still headed by Rogers. Other good battles lower down. Martin Krunker is on the back of Davide Chiesa. This is for 9th and 10th places. Look, Honda, which looks a little bit nervous and a bit edgy, that, doesn't it, coming out of the chicane, keeping that Porsche at bay. But another good fight here, raging on.
Yeah, Chiesa, they say, getting a little bit out of shape, coming through the chicane down the back straight. That makes him vulnerable coming into the Parabolica, the final turn. Chiesa on the inside defence, and Krunker also looking a little bit like the car's maybe not as stable as he would like in this stage of the race. But these two fighting over the final 2 points that are going to be paid out during the course of this opening round, and it's just as intense in 10th position as it is all the way up at the top. And Alcamo in 11th place, closing slowly but surely.
Another penalty we've just been told about for Arthur Camara number 747, winner here over a year ago in the Charity Challenge, but Arthur Camera is in strife, having been involved in dramas on the opening laps of the race as well. So some of the big names are struggling, as there is Chiesa versus Krunker. Lower down the order, Attila Denks is under attack as well, because he's got Tobias Pfeffer with the Audi all over him. So Denks in the BMW versus the Audi. Tobias Pfeffer then looks for a way by, and there's lots of traffic up the road ahead. Now Pfeffer commits to the inside line at the Rogier chicane, brakes late. Is he going to be able to make the corner? He gets through and does make the corner. That was a good pass.
Yeah, that was a nice clean pass. Attila Denks, his car's looking like it's got a little bit more than motorway miles on it at this moment in time. A few panels have been banged and dented over the course of the race, and maybe not quite running to its absolute even optimum performance as he drops further down the order. But someone who's moving up quite rapidly, we've not seen it on the broadcast, is this man, Giovanni De Salvo. Started, don't forget, in third position, dropped as low as ninth at one stage in the race, but currently in sixth, right on the back of Hamia Osane, who's also right on the back of Eamon Murphy, who's right on the back of Kevin Sigge, who's right on the back of Josh Rogers. So Gianni De Salvo can see second position with a small task of 1, 2, 3, 4 cars to clear before he can get behind his teammate.
Salvo was delayed, in fact, in a coming together with Martin Krunker on the opening lap in the Porsche, so that's partly why he's dropped back. But the, as you say, reigning Ferrari Esports champion getting on with the job now as he comes up over the line. Amir Hosseini, who has always gone well around Monza, ex-Mercedes racer in SRO Esports, comes then down towards the braking zone. Behind De Salvo is James Baldwin. Now, is James biding his time, keeping his powder dry and other assorted cliches, or is he genuinely struggling for pace here? The world's fastest gamer, running at the moment in 7th spot. You'd be ill-advised, I think, to rule him out completely, wouldn't you?
I think the words James Baldwin and struggling for pace are two things I've never heard put together before. So I would suggest it's probably strategy, or just, as you say, biding his time, not wanting to get too heavily involved in what is an incredible train of cars. But in other news, I'm just hearing in our ears that number 747, which is Arthur Camera, has retired from the race. So Camera is now out of the event, as is the number 911. Which I'm just trying to find, is Lucas Schmidt, also retired from the race. So 2 drivers out of the running.
Yes, Lucas Schmidt was given a drive-through penalty anyway, wasn't he, for contact early on, and now he's out of the race. So Schmidt happens, as they say. We've got David Tonizza then, clear of Rogers. Ziggy still in third. This long train now is building up behind him. Ziggy, Murphy, Hosseini, De Salvo, Baldwin, Niels Naujoks. Look at the margins, 3/10, 3/10, 4/10, half a second. There's not much to choose between them. But look, we are also edging towards that pit window. And it's going to be really interesting, isn't it, to see who is where on the circuit when the window opens and whether they come in early to get out of the traffic jam.
Yeah, it is indeed. That's always a commentator's nightmare when pit windows open, trying to recall who is where and how they feed into it. But for you folks at home, if you're new to the SRO Esports Series broadcasts, just a quick reminder that on the left-hand side of your screen where you see the timing tower, where there's a little orange number 1 next to the driver's numbers, that signifies orange, they've not been down pit road, and 1, they've still got 1 mandatory stop to serve. Once they've served that 1, it'll go green, as we see now Sigge just in front of a bit of a fight there further back.
Yeah, and I think they just about survived, but it is Amir Hosseini versus Giovanni De Salvo. Look, Hosseini in the grey McLaren on the inside line is just about going to be able to keep the FDA Esports driver at bay. Yes, so Hosseini goes through. Good defensive driving that. The privateer, about the sole private entrant other than Denis Grabowski, is Amir Hosseini. To the inside line again, looks De Salvo, but look, his life has suddenly changed for the worse. He's got James Baldwin all over him like a cheap suit, hasn't he? So now you've got trying to attack, trying to defend Giovanni De Salvo. Right now he is busier than a bricklayer in Beirut because he's on the attack, he's on the defensive as the cars come once more through the 2 Lesmo bends.
Yep, and once again, the wily Niels Naujoks in the BMW, slowly but surely biding his time, catching up to the back of this fight, as well as Amir Hosseini using every trick in the book to fill the mirrors of the car ahead. Can Hosseini get the run down the inside? Yes, he does. Well over and done with before the braking zone, and Hosseini drops down side by side, David.
But as they come now out of the chicane, De Salvo tries to buy into this as well. Look, Eamon Murphy under real attack. Great battle going on here. So this takes you now 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Look at Baldwin all of a sudden. Niels Naujoks is on the prowl as well. So this could all be very, very different in order come the end of the lap then. Eamon Murphy was hanging on to 4th place. To the inside line, look, goes De Salvo. It's now Niels Naujoks up ahead of Baldwin. So we were looking at the head of the queue initially. Now Yox goes way wide coming off the parabolica. In real world terms, he'd have to pay to get back into the circuit, so why did he go? But that puts Baldwin back up into 7th, and amazingly, despite all of that, the order is as it was before the Ascari chicane.
Fantastic stuff. This is the kind of fight as a driver that you enjoy only after it's finished. At this moment in time, they will have eyes like dustbin lids on Stokes, trying to look behind them, alongside them, in front of them, managing their car, thinking about their pit strategy. This is, make no mistake everybody at home, this is esports sim racing at the very highest level. This is not playing computer games. This is not sat at home on your rig having an easy time. They will be concentrating, the muscles will be tensed, and it is amazing entertainment.
Yes, you've got drivers here for professional teams. There's another penalty being given, 197, which is the Dennis DeMarco BMW, and it is for avoidable contact. So 18th on the racetrack, but about to have to do the walk of shame down the pit lane is then number 97, as I say. That is Dennis DeMarco's BMW. There's confirmation on the graphic, as now for 4th and 5th places, Eamon Murphy and Amir Hosseini are still nose to tail, but look what's happened. DeSalvo has dropped back a little bit, and suddenly Kevin Ziggy has checked out. He's got away up the road, hasn't he? As the pit window is now open, so we can expect 1 or 2 people to dive in, I think, and get out of that traffic queue this time around.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible shout at this stage. Even if you've got the lap pace in the car, if you're racing in close proximity with another driver, you are giving away time. You are stressing your car more than you need to. Get out of it. Get out of the danger zone. Get out of the risk. And try and buy yourself some free air.
Right, so who's going to come in? Let's see, because Hosseini has got himself stuck. Giovanni DeSalvo, James Baldwin, Niels Naujoks. Who is going to bail? Let's see, out of the parabolica. In comes Eamon Murphy. He was the one I didn't expect to come in, interestingly, but he's in. So Hosseini goes 4th, DeSalvo 5th, Baldwin 6th, Naujoks up to 7th. Eamon Murphy then the first one to stop.
I fear that Eamon Murphy has made a mistake with that manoeuvre. Didn't quite have the pace leading up to the pit stop. More likely than not, won't be changing tyres, so the car's going to be exactly the same, but on slightly colder tyres with slightly lower pressures. And the other drivers around him seem like they're a little bit quicker at this stage. So I dare say Eamon Murphy, unfortunately for him, might find himself losing at least 2 or 3 cars track position when he comes back out and the pit stops shake themselves out.
Possibly, although the other side of it is that he was losing pace anyway by having to defend with Hosseini all over the back of him, so he doesn't have to do that anymore. It will be interesting to see what the trade-off is. David Tonizza opening the gap up front. You can see on the timing tower it's 2.2 seconds now. He was about 0.2 a lap quicker than Josh Rogers. Pit window only open for 10 minutes. It's going to get very busy shortly as Darren King goes through down in 12th spot. He's on the tail of Lucas Muller. Mercedes just ahead of Honda, and then Tobias Pfeffer is behind them. So as out wide goes Muller, the Audi starting to hunt them down. But 2.2 seconds the margin between the top 2 as the pit window is now open.
Yeah, fantastic as well to see such a variety of cars on the grid. The Honda NSX, not necessarily one of the most competitive cars in the GT3 classification of this simulation, but it's great to see it represented on the grid. And in the hands of Darren King, 12th position, strong result so far, plenty of racing left to do. Top 10 of course, score points, top 5 automatically invited to round 2, so a little bit of work for King yet, as I think Tonizza, thought he was going to jump down pit road, but he continues serenely on at the head of the field.
I thought exactly the same thing there, Paulie. The pace of the car was sort of tricking us into thinking he was about to go for the pit lane. He's actually pulled out another 10th over Josh Rogers, so it might not have looked that stunning a lap, but he has gained another 10th. There is Rogers in that second place. So Eamon Murphy, 22nd when he came back out, and his pit stop was 43.5 seconds. So that is, if you like, a benchmark pit stop. Are people quicker? Are people slower? We will find out as the stops cycle through.
And of course, I'd argue what you don't want to do, which is maybe going to happen in the next, 7 minutes, is stop at the same time as everybody else around you, because then you're getting no benefit. Conversely, you're getting no disadvantage too. So it'll be interesting to see who jumps first in this little pack that we've got going on. And don't forget as well, although there is the physical stopping of the car, putting the 1 litre in, it's how fast you attack the pit entry. You've got to be careful not to get a pit lane speeding penalty if you can't get the car slowed down in time. And then how fast can you get back up to speed again when you are on your outlap from the pit stop? All these things count, as well as the actual time loss on pit road.
Josh Rogers has got another 10th back, in fact, against David Tonizza, so the gap down to 2.1. He's a relative newcomer to ACC, is Josh Rogers. He's been a world champion on other platforms, but he's new to this, and you've got to say he's doing a very, very good job indeed. Qualified 4th, ran 3rd, he's up to 2nd, and bit by bit he's getting a little bit closer to the former Formula 1 Esports champion from 2019, David Tonizza in the lead. As again to the outside line there, look, the battle is on between Hosseini and DeSalvo as they come into the braking zone. Hosseini through the traffic, DeSalvo behind him, James Baldwin 6th in the mix as well, but the gaps are starting to open up amongst the top 3. Tonizza continues on for another lap, so does Josh Rogers. And what about 3rd? Kevin Siggy goes across the line, does he? There's Hosseini, there's DeSalvo, there's Baldwin. Here you're talking fractions of a second, but it's 2 seconds between the top 2 and another over 3.5, nearly 4 between 2nd and 3rd.
You are indeed, and now you can see from the body language of James Baldwin car, that is the blue and black McLaren at the back of this 3-car pack. He seems like he's a bit more aggressive now than he was in the opening portion of the race, so my money would be on James Baldwin's decided now is the time to start unleashing some of that potential in the race and try and find a way past these cars ahead. He's been a little bit, I hate to say the word muted, because it's not really appropriate for someone such as James Baldwin's skill, but he's not shown the flair and the speed that I've seen in previous competitions. So I wonder if Baldwin's been keeping his powder dry a little bit and now is starting to get interested in Giovanni DeSalvo and the number 4 Ferrari, 5th position ahead of him.
Well, that's what I was suggesting earlier on, that, you know, was he struggling for pace? Was this a plan? And you might be right. Now, as we get past the halfway point of the race, he does look a little bit more towy. Is this because he's been running at a pace that means he won't have to worry about taking on fuel? He's looked after the tyres and now has the machinery. He's got the fuel and the rubber to be able to push. Well, he is certainly pushing. He's on the back of DeSalvo. We have just gone over that halfway mark. And Eamon Murphy is 18th now in his drive after the pit stop, but we need to see where he will be as everybody else out of the top 10 cycles through. Remember, 43.5 seconds his pit stop time. You're riding with Baldwin down to the Parabolica. Giovanni DeSalvo, the Ferrari Esports champion, ahead of this year's British GT Esports champion. They dive through the Parabolica as one.
Fantastic stuff. I'm talking about tyre wear and strategy. The Kevin Siggy battle may have taken a little bit of life out of his rubber, because Siggy is, believe it or not, despite running 3rd on track, the slowest lapping driver of the top 10 runners at this stage in the race. So Siggy's we've seen being very much in the heart of anything that's been dramatic so far at the front of the field, and maybe he's taken that little bit more life out of his tyres than those around him, which is great news for Josh Rogers. That gives him an opportunity to start clearing the McLaren driver, but for the rest of the cars, I fear cork and bottle scenario may well be coming back again.
Yeah, Kevin Siggy, having done a really good defensive job early on, has got nothing now, it seems, by way of an answer. He's dropping away from Rogers, like in his defence he worked the tyres too hard and is now struggling a little bit. There is a warning for unpredictable driving to Luca Tozzato, who was last on the grid. Tozzato trying to push his way forward, and now the order continues to shuffle around, partly because of penalties, partly because of the pit stop cycling through. Just looking at the clock, we're going to end up with a very busy pit lane, aren't we? Because so many of the leading 10 have not yet stopped. They're all going to come in a great big clump.
Yeah, that has got its own dramas and excitements that might bring as well. If you're coming in a large pack, we've seen it in many different kinds of motorsport down the years, you're very much vulnerable to other people's mistakes, or not, as the case may be. So risky to stop at the same time as pretty much the entirety of the field, but that's why I'm in the box and they're in the track. They know better than I do. I just talk about things.
And you can talk about Jeremy Bouteloup in the Bentley, getting himself up one further place there ahead of Mikhail Statsenko in the Audi. So the Bentley, which made its debut, of course, at Monza in the what was then Brockman Endurance Series, goes powering through, and that's a place gained, as I say, for Jeremy Bouteloup, up to 25th. Another drive-through is being served by Dennis DeMarco, and that means he drops down and down and down the order. So we have got then only a couple of minutes left of the pit window, 2 minutes and 2 seconds, 1 second. So they've got to be in this time, haven't they?
Yep, it's got to be in this lap. You've got to make it happen. We see a lot of the numbers going green at the side of the tower. That shows that the drivers have served their mandatory 1 pit stop for the course of this race. Be interested to see at the front of the field exactly who decides to come down pit road when. David Tonizza, still the race leader. Rogers still in second position, 3 seconds in arrears, and Siggy 7.5 further back. So will those gaps extend or get smaller once the pit window closes?
Just ponder this for me, Paul. Ninth, before the pit window opened, was treble 2, which is the Davide Chiesa Honda NSX, okay? Ninth before the pit window opened. He has done a 71-second pit stop for new tyres. So he's lost a big chunk of time, but now he can push like crazy. Now, is that the right call or the wrong call? 26 minutes, we'll find out.
Yeah, I'm going to say in 26 minutes, I'll come back to you on that one. I would suggest initially that that's the wrong call, but Chiesa obviously thinks there's some lap time to be found, and that'll be fascinating actually to see how he gets on. But a 71-second pit stop, that's a lot of track position that you're giving away.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's a lot of time. A lot of cars can get ahead of you that you've then got to overtake. And even if you've got fresh rubber, if they've looked after theirs, you're not going to be at that much of an advantage. Now, this is the race leader who, and you can see the leading quartet of all yet to make their pit stops. David Tonizza needs to be in this time. They all need to be in this time. Otherwise, they'll be in strife, and the leader does indeed pit. So 43.5 seconds was what we had out of Murphy early on. Rogers comes in. Where is Kevin Ziggy? He should come in. There he is in the background, and there is James Baldwin's blue McLaren diving into the pit lane.
So let's see whose virtual mechanics can get their car turned around the quickest. You can influence this, of course, by stopping on your marker exactly in the right spot. But just for a second, David, we're looking at Amir Asani now. Has he been down pit road? Yes, he has. So this is the furthest up driver that has made his stops. Let's see how far away from the fight Amir Asani is when everybody serves their pit stop in the next few seconds.
Okay, so here he comes then as Niels Naujoks, 43.7 seconds in the pits. He's lost a couple of seconds. The best stop, 41.4 now for Krunker. This is Hosseini, who comes up over the line then and accelerates past the pits. He's going to join in behind Josh Rogers. So Hosseini is in the mix. He will stay ahead of Baldwin. Baldwin's going to drop back behind DeSalvo by the look of that as they accelerate down then now towards the Rettifilio. And there's contact straight away. Hosseini gets up on the inside there. Look of Kevin Ziggy. DeSalvo gets in the back of Hosseini. And Kevin Ziggy is the one who came off worse there. Ziggy gets jiggy at the first chicane, and he's going to lose 1, possibly 2, possibly 3 places.
Yeah, that is very much a case of you've got cold air tyres, you've got lower tyre pressures, and you just don't quite know exactly what the car's going to do underneath you, but you're keen to make that position, and sadly, not enough space for 2 cars.
Ziggy is still in strife, look, being forced out over the curb. DeSalvo's got Baldwin behind him, make that alongside him. So this is James Baldwin's big chance, look to gain a place, and he will do so on the inside line, I think, at the first of the Lesmo Benz, or will he? The Ferrari braves it out on the outside line. DeSalvo up the curb and back onto the racetrack. James Baldwin is still alongside, and now he does make that move, and he makes it stick.
Yep, nice move there from James Baldwin. As we suggested, maybe starting to get the elbows out now, start pushing a little bit more, and that's paid off very nicely indeed. Thank you very much. P5 for James Baldwin, down to P6. Jarnik DeSalvo. Kevin Ziggy, I think, will consider himself a very lucky boy indeed to still be on the racetrack in 4th position. And Amir Asani, the big winner from the pit stop sequence, moves himself up to 3rd, 6.6 away from Josh Rogers in 2nd, and the fastest pit stop man, that man, David Tonizza, a 41.3 second time loss, is the quickest of our race leading drivers on pit road.
And you can see there, Tobias Pfeffer has been given a 15-second penalty for avoidable contact. You're right about Hosseini, because he was in 5th before the stops, and now he is running in 3rd place then. So Amir Hosseini, who, as I say, when he was for Mercedes in that charity challenge at Monza, led, but seemed to run out of pace late race with the engine map. That's going back well over 12 months now, but he's doing a good job here in the McLaren, chipping his way forward. Battles rage on behind as Niels Naujoks gets involved with Eamon Murphy, and the BMW elbows its way up the inside. Murphy gets spat out wide. Baldwin then in the McLaren comes up to have a go at Ziggy, and Naujoks loses out because up and past him goes Martin Krunker. So it was nearly 1 up, but it's gone actually to 1 down for Naujoks. He was going for 7th, but he's ended up 9th.
Yeah, very, very aggressive driving from Naujoks and Murphy there, running each other off onto the grass, trading plates. Naujoks not happy, flashing the lights of the big BMW, but those two will need to be a little bit more cautious over the next 22 minutes, because that was as close to being a very big accident indeed as one can possibly get. And the upshot is Niels Naujoks loses a position to Krunker in the Porsche, and the 2-way fight, it's a 3-way fight, but Naujoks not a happy driver.
Could I be getting worried about Amir Hosseini's internet connection, just looking at the little yellow graphic next to his name, because that is larger than many other drivers. It's not yet in the critical zone, as you see James Baldwin finally having got himself up past Kevin Ziggy, hanging on to 4th place with their 6th to Salvo, but Hosseini's internet looking perhaps a little more vulnerable than others. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a potential. That's one of the downsides, unfortunately, to virtual motorsport. We pretend it's engine failure or mechanical failure that can happen in the real world, but that's one to keep an eye on, certainly for Amir Hosseini, who's found himself in 3rd position. So hopefully, for the driver's benefit, that remains stable for the rest of the race, because Amir Hosseini performing. I like to see that from a driver sometimes. Doesn't make much noise, don't see much about him, he's not involved in any battles, but suddenly, here we go, I'm in a good position, surprise, and that's a mark of a good driver. Make no noise, get the result.
So what can Hosseini do about Josh Rogers ahead of him? As you see, Niels Naujok's back on his toes here to get back ahead of the Porsche number 5, Martin Krunke. The VRS Commander Simsport entry fends him off as they go through the Rettifilio once more. Good effort this by Martin Krunke, because Niels Naujok has been there and he's done it and he's won it and he's got a wardrobe full of t-shirts to prove it, and he still can't find a way past.
Yeah, it is. Great driving there from Krunke. Took advantage of the fight between Naujok's and Murphy a lap or so ago to insert himself into the middle of that challenge. And Naujok's been getting frustrated, I dare say, although I'll have to check the lap times to make sure this is factual and not just codswallop, I'm saying. But I dare say that Naujok's has got a little bit more speed in that BMW, but he'll be frustrated that he's got the Porsche in front of him, stopping him, attacking the bright greenish coloured McLaren further ahead. So look at this fight here as well now. Kevin Ziggy, 5th position, still in front of Giovanni Di Salvo.
And that's good for Baldwin, look, because Ziggy is holding up the Ferrari, but he can't stay with Baldwin. So James is getting away. His next target is Amir Hosseini. James for the podium is a possibility. He's got to make up 3 seconds, and he's off the road, way out wide. Scrap that, because he's just blotted his copybook well and truly. 2 places lost. Ziggy goes ahead of him, De Salvo goes ahead of him, and now Eamon Murphy gets past him as well. So James Baldwin there, with a very un-James Baldwin-like moment, chucks it wide at the Ascari chicane, and that has really done for him all of a sudden.
It has, but on the positive note, James Baldwin was very, very lucky not to make contact with the barrier, so he won't have attracted any damage, as Kevin Ziggy now under more pressure than he's been at any stage in this race. De Salvo on the outside line.
Side by side past the pits then, 22 laps done, 19 minutes to go as they dive down now towards the chicane. Brake late, brake hard. Kevin Ziggy still is able to hang on to the place, and De Salvo and then Murphy and then Baldwin right up behind him. It's a long, long queue, but if you're behind Kevin Ziggy, you're being delayed. They've got to find a way of getting that cork out of the bottle.
They have indeed. This is great racing for us at home to see Kevin Ziggy doing a fantastic defensive job. He's strong on the brakes where he needs to be, but that is meaning that the cars behind are getting increasingly... Ooh, a little bit of contact there, almost touched De Salvo and took him off the racetrack, but Giovanni manages to stay on and retain 5th position. But this is great racing from these drivers, tooth and nail battling, exchanging positions, using every trick they have in their armoury to find a way past the respective rivals, as Niels Naujok does just that.
We have another drive-through penalty being, a time penalty, 15 seconds being given to Leonardo Dal Carmo for an incident. But right now, Kevin Ziggy still showing how well he can defend. He represents BMW in R-Factor 2, who interestingly not in ACC, as they come once more down through the Ascari chicane. So Kevin Ziggy under attack still. Giovanni De Salvo right up behind him. Martin Krunke also worth keeping an eye to. He's still there in 9th place. He's fallen back behind Naujok, but the 3-time iRacing world champion in single-seaters, adapting again to GT cars, and he's not letting Naujok get away, is he?
He's not at all, and also the 15-second penalty, as you say, for 10th position, the number 99 Ferrari of Del Carmo, will mean that King in the Honda moves up into the last points-paying position. 15 seconds, will be added to Del Carmo's race time at the checkered flag, and that is bound to move him quite significantly down the running order. So, real shame that you've done the work on track, but then lose out through aggressive driving, I believe it is.
So King is the heir to 10th place. Down they come, all over the curb. Never going to stop the car is DeSalvo, who goes straight on up the escape road. Now he should really give back the place to Kevin Siggy, otherwise there could well be a penalty because he would have gained an advantage by being off the circuit. Where does he blend back in? He's ahead of Siggy. The danger is you let him go and others come streaming by as well. So if he is going to give back that place, and he has done it, he's got to be oh so careful that Murphy doesn't mug him in the process. So Kevin Siggy is back where he should be, and DeSalvo is having to make that Ferrari as wide as possible.
Yeah, quick thinking there from DeSalvo, realised he couldn't make the corner, immediately sent himself down the escape road and then was smart enough and cool-headed enough to know that the stewards would be looking at that one. We do have live stewards here for this race, so gave the position back at the first available opportunity. And as you say, David, the biggest, most difficult task in that one is to not give one place back, but to not give 5 places back to the rest of the field. So good driving, good recovery from a disappointing moment for DeSalvo.
James Baldwin is in danger of having to go defensive with Naujoks crawling all over him. Martin Krunker is still there as well, actually lapping quicker last time around than the race leader, but David Tonizza 3.7 seconds to the good. That gap has gone up, so he is still looking very, very secure in the lead of the race, is David Tonizza. This great battle for 4th though, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, down towards the parabolica they come. I mean, this could all change in one corner, shuffle the order completely, but Kevin Siggy, you've got to say, knows how to defend, doesn't he?
Oh, he does. He's doing a fantastic performance. And just again to remind everybody at home, the top 5 drivers, as well as scoring points, get the automatic invitation to Paul Ricard on June the 11th. So this is a fight for points, a fight for position, but it's also a fight to mean that you don't have to go through the hot lap qualification process, where, quite frankly, anything could happen. Miss one race, championship gets very difficult indeed.
Here comes DeSalvo. This time he's found the brake pedal. Look, so he's gone ahead of Eamon Murphy there, or stayed ahead of Eamon Murphy there. Now Yops is 7th, so he's got ahead of James Baldwin now. BMW gets ahead of McLaren. So James's race is starting to unravel. 3 laps ago, we thought he was in the ascendancy and could get the podium. And now, possibly with a little bit of tyre damage picked up by his trip through the gravel, he's dropping away and doesn't seem to have an answer, does he?
He doesn't, but this is what's been fabulous about this race. 1 minute, driver X is the man with a plan moving forward. 2 laps later, completely turned around on its head. They're the back of the train, and somebody new is the heir to the throne of Kevin Siggy's 4th position. But I will say, and commentator's curse upcoming, if this stays with Kevin Siggy in 4th place in the next 14 minutes and 30 seconds, it will be one of the most impressive drives I've ever seen. Not putting a significant wheel wrong and defending so very well. Great drive from the Team Red Line McLaren at the moment.
Yeah, he just soaks up the pressure like a sponge, doesn't he? Again, yeah. Look, Giovanni DeSalvo looks to the inside line, but the McLaren cuts through the air nicely. Bit of a mistake there from Eamon Murphy, who went for the inside, couldn't commit to it, and he's slightly off his line coming out of the Ascari chicane. That means Niels Naujoks is now right behind him and all over him. James Baldwin is there, but he's under attack, look, from Krunker. So the Porsche goes one side and then the other. This could all get ugly as they dive down to the parabolica. DeSalvo is going to lose out. Look, Niels Naujoks in the BMW has suddenly found another gear, and he has got past the lot of them. All of a sudden, Niels Naujoks goes through up into 5th place. What a move. He's just bulldozed his way through. Contact free, yes, but that BMW said, I am coming through. Make your own arrangements. And Niels Naujoks now is in 5th place. Great stuff.
That I had to clap. That was that impressive. That was absolutely fantastic from Niels Naujoks. From all the drivers, actually, it's 3 wide into the Retifilio now. James Baldwin in the middle. Can all 3 cars make it through? Yes, they can. James Baldwin a little bit light on paint on the front fenders due to that incident. Runs wide onto the gravel as well. Krunker tries to find a way past and does. And James Baldwin goes to the back of the queue, but come on, Niels Naujoks, give the man a trophy. That was something quite fantastic.
That was experience, wasn't it? Knowing exactly where you can pick up places, knowing the confidence you've got to have within the car to get around the fast corner like the parabolica. Giovanni DeSalvo looking a bit ragged, and there the Porsche Martin Krunker is up the outside line looking for a place. He's not going to go around the outside, surely. There, no, because he gets run out wide. So Eamon Murphy and the McLaren looks to fight back, but Naujoks, look, he's checked out now. You play amongst yourselves. I've got this McLaren to catch, he says.
Yeah, and that actually, speaking of that McLaren of Kevin Siggy, that gives him a little bit of much needed breathing space. Yes, I dare say, I will predict that the BMW will close onto it soon enough, but Siggy just gets a lap or two to be able to regain his composure, not be looking through his rear mirrors and maybe give it time for the car and the tyres to cycle back into a more competitive operating window. So Kevin Sigge needed that break, but Krunker, 7th position, is looking behind and looking ahead and not quite sure exactly where the next challenge is going to come from or be issued.
Darren King has just had a wild moment in the background as well, running out of room and road on the exit of the Ascari chicane. Martin Krunker continues to push forward then in the VRS kind of SimSport entry up towards the timing line. Giovanni De Salvo just up the road ahead of him. De Salvo qualified 3rd, remember, and has dropped back. Ziggy qualified 2nd, and a drive-through for Amir Hosseini. The man in 3rd place cops a drive-through penalty.
Oh, Amir Hosseini, what a disaster. A drive-through penalty at this stage in the race, I'm going to predict, is due to a track limit infringement, which is managed by the software itself. But Amir Hosseini, 3rd position, there's no way he's going to stay in the top 10 following that drive-through. That'll promote Kevin Sigge, whose day, rather than me commentator cursing him, has got even better. Bottom step of the rostrum, provisional, but with 11 minutes of racing and 5 or 6 very hungry eSport drivers, anything's going to happen. Fantastic stuff.
Hosseini's drive-through is for avoidable contact with Kevin Sigge, we understand. So that's the reason that the penalty comes. Getting a replay here of more drama through the Ascari chicane, but it is avoidable contact for which Amir Hosseini has copped the penalty.
So Amir Hosseini, the driver I said that's doing a great job not to make any great shakes or make any noise about him, instead goes a little bit bumper cars. So shows what I know, but unfortunately for Hosseini, the big upshot of that is outside of the top 5 for sure, outside of the points in the top 10 quite likely, and that will be an invitation from, with 10 minutes to go, from a podium place to having to do it all again in the hot lap qualifiers for the next race. So big loss for Amir Hosseini.
It also brings Kevin Sigge to the podium, which you could argue is justified given the way that he's defended. So Kevin Sigge provisionally will get there. Trouble is, Niels Naujoks has other ideas about this, and Niels Naujoks is only 0.8 of a second back, and there are 10 minutes to go. So Naujoks to the podium is also a possibility, as you see Krunker getting onto the tail once more of Giovanni De Salvo as they make the run up over the timing line. Bang! 10 minutes on the clock then as they come through. David Tonizza is getting away from Josh Rogers, so unless there's something lurking up the road to trip up David Tonizza, he looks as though now he is pretty much home and dry. Behind him, you can't say the same for anybody else, can you really? Siggy still under attack, Naujoks still pushing.
Yep, the fight is well and truly on in the final 9.5 minutes of the race now. Niels Naujoks, put yourself in the mindset of Niels Naujoks. You know that your car at Monza, not necessarily the most competitive car in the field at this stage in the race, you know you need a top 5 position in order to get through to the next race. What do? Do you gamble? Do you roll the dice for those extra points? Or do you keep that 5th position and know that you've got a reasonably solid start to your championship campaign? Very difficult call.
You do one or the other, Paul. I totally agree. Yes, and it's something you have to decide in the heat of the moment, isn't it? That split second. It is a tough call for them. That is for sure. Martin Krunker has been impressive for my money as well. He's just quietly got on with the job, but has shown good pace, especially in this second stint. Now, before the pit window closed, we posed the question about Davide Chiesa going on to new tyres. Was it the right thing? He was 9th. He went on to new tyres. He lost 71 seconds, and he is now 17th. That's the answer.
And that is an incredibly useful bit of learning for the entirety of this field for the remainder of the season. Unless we have a dramatic change in weather conditions or something totally bizarre happens, as we're looking at Siggy now starting to come under pressure from Niels Naujoks. Naujoks down the inside into the Parabolica. He can turn the car much better than the McLaren. Siggy out on the marbles, loses traction, loses forward momentum, and Niels Naujoks, 4th on track, will become 3rd once the penalty is served by Hosseini. Ahead, Niels Naujoks, bang, done, signed, sealed and delivered. Made it look easy.
Except he has had a warning for track limit abuse on a previous lap. So Niels Naujoks is not totally out of the woods, as there's a bit of a brush between Murphy and Krunker. This is for 7th. Martin Krunker was ahead, but he gets forced out wide, so Krunker drops back behind Murphy and is now prey to James Baldwin. Remember, he was 4th a little while ago, and now he is down in 9th place. So James Baldwin is trying to fight back here.
Yep, and I would say as Mirasan has got a drive-through penalty, it's been a couple of laps now. Normally you have 3 laps in which you need to serve that penalty, otherwise it will become significantly more severe. So keep our eye on Hosseini. He should be jumping down pit road on this lap as Krunker once again trying to find a way past that McLaren. Nothing doing yet, but as you say, very impressive drive from the Porsche man.
It is, and James Baldwin is back at the races as well. Look, he's onto the tail now of Martin Krunker as the 3 of them run towards us. Now there, look, Kevin Siggy doing his best to stay in touch with Nayox, but he's been caught again by Giovanni De Salvo, so Kevin Siggy's very busy race continues. We've got 7 more minutes to go, and David Tonizza it is that still leads the way, 3.9 seconds clear of Rogers now.
Yeah, fantastic from the front too. We've not seen much of them on the broadcast because, quite frankly, they have checked out, just racing by the numbers, bringing the car home now. 1 and 2, great performance. First time I've seen David Tonizza in SRO competition that I've watched, so great performance from him. As we're looking at Gregor Schill doing a little bit of a touring car. Is Gregor Schill in the BMW, loses out to the VRS Coanda, Aston Martin ahead, but Martin Krunker now exploring the outer limits of the Monza circuit.
Into the pits has come Hosseini. We've been talking about the great variety of brands represented in terms of the cars. Bear in mind as well, you've got an F1 Esports world champion going toe-to-toe with iRacing world champions, R-Factor 2 drivers, plus world's fastest gamer. It really is a very versatile entry, never mind the great variety of the brands. As there, look, De Salvo finally nails Kevin Siggy. He's worked hard for the bulk of the race, and that McLaren now, with 6 minutes to go, you can almost hear it saying, enough, you've worked me too hard. That car's got nothing left, has it now?
No, not at all. He's used everything and more that's available to him with the car, with the tyres, with his own mental strength to keep hold of that position for basically a 60-minute defensive strategy. And now Kevin Siggy's got to be very, very careful. It's so easy, David, at this stage of the race, just to throw the car off, just try and go 2/10 faster than it's physically capable of doing. And all of a sudden, a lot of hard work comes very quickly unstuck. And sadly for Siggy, he's on the bubble, isn't he? 5th position, the last of the guaranteed entries into round 2.
Absolutely. So he needs now Murphy and Baldwin to delay one another, but I don't think they are. I think they look as though they've got perhaps better race cars underneath them, and they're still squabbling for 6th place. But what they need to do is try and work together and get ahead, if they are able to do that, and think about the need to be in the top 5. But right now they are so busy squabbling amongst themselves. Kevin Siggy might just survive. 5 minutes to go. It's going to be close, this, though.
Yeah, it's going to be incredibly close, and Kevin Siggy will be screaming at his monitor for this lap time, this time remaining to go faster. It's just been 6 or 7 minutes too long as this motor race for Kevin Siggy and what he's tried to achieve. But credit where credit's due, no matter where he finishes today, his performance has been incredible, but it will be a crying shame for the driver to drop out of that top 5 positions, if indeed he does, in the next 4.5.
So new, of course, to McLaren, BMW driver in iRacing, and he is about to get mugged, isn't he? Look, because the toe works against him. It brings Murphy and Baldwin right up behind him. So this one-mate McLaren race has contact as Siggy and Murphy get themselves together. Baldwin then looks to try to find a way past the pair. 5th could be on for James in this recovery. 4 minutes to go now.
Yep, James Baldwin, remember that we spoke earlier in the broadcast, maybe he's looking after his car. This is when it'll start paying him back, isn't it, David, when the car is much fresher than those 2 ahead.
But Murphy defends instantly. They lose a length or 2 relative to Kevin Siggy. So Eamon Murphy and James Baldwin are not working together. They are very definitely fighting each other. Krunker is 8th behind them. Darren King is now 9th, and into the top 10 has come Lucas Müller in the Haupt Racing Team Schindler Mercedes, with that drive-through being served by Amir Hosseini. So the McLaren fight continues. 3.5 minutes on the clock. There's going to be time for 1 more, possibly 2 for Tonizza.
Yeah, fabulous stuff. I wish this race was twice as long as it is. It's served up incredible racing throughout the grid for the duration of the 60 minutes, even though David Tonizza and Josh Rogers have done their level best to make it a boring 2-man show up at the front of the field. The rest of the grid just giving thrills and spills throughout, and it's not over yet for this fight now for 5th position, headed by Kevin Siggy, with Eamon Murphy just behind, and world's fastest gamer, reigning British GT champion James Baldwin trying to sneak up and take 2 cars in the next lap and a bit.
Murphy for Yas Heat McLaren. The McLaren Shadow entry is that of James Baldwin. both of which are managed by the same team, Veloci, the Rupert Svensson Cook and Jack Clark organisation. So different liveries, same brand, but they come out of the same stable effectively, so they don't want to come to blows on track if they can avoid it. That would go down pretty badly, I think. Tobias Grunewald goes through with Jeremy Bouteloup in the Bentley right up behind him. Scrap on for 18th and 19th places. 2.5 minutes on the clock. And up front, now David Tonizza making this look easy, as, look, to the outside line goes Murphy. The other side claimed by James Baldwin, and McLarens go 3 wide up towards the Curva Grande, and Baldwin has got round the outside of Murphy, and he's got the pace to get up alongside. Now look, Kevin Ziggy, that will give him the inside line for the Roger chicane. Can James Baldwin do it? Can he break late? Can he go through? He's on the inside line. There's a brush between the pair of them. Out wide and over the curb goes Kevin Ziggy. He hangs onto the place, but James Baldwin looks like he's got a better car underneath him now.
Yeah, a little bit naughty from Baldwin there, trying to crowd Ziggy off the racetrack. Ziggy went off the track, but regained the position. I think that's nice and fair. And I think we're just looking there. Baldwin may have snuck back past him again on the final lap for 5th position, as David taken away for our race leader on the final lap, headed into the final corner.
So David Tonizza then comes now down towards the Parabolica. I reckon he's going to squeeze another lap out of this, isn't he? 1.5 minutes on the clock as he comes into the Parabolica now. There is the fight. Baldwin has got ahead of Ziggy then. So he's managed to get himself up into 5th place. That means he will qualify for the next round of the championship. He's too far back from Giovanni De Salvo, but James Baldwin has worked really, really hard for that place. Martin Krunker is right back with him as well in 7th place. So it's Tonizza, Rogers, Naujoks, the top 3 now. Niels Naujoks in 3rd place. Hunting down Josh Rogers. 4th is Giovanni De Salvo. James Baldwin there in 5th place. But it is a race that has had a wonderful race all the way through. Lots of battles. It's not done yet, as Ziggy is still having to defend from Martin Krunker as they come up over the line. Tonizza is on his last lap though now.
He is indeed. I got a little bit overexcited and gave a lap away to David Tonizza as Kevin Ziggy defended it. And I would wager that the pass from James Baldwin was purely down to the fact that he saved his tyres in the early portion. He could turn the car easier, he could get off the corner under traction faster than the other 2 cars, and that is pure and simply what earned him and won him that 5th position overtaking manoeuvre. So Baldwin, ever the statistician, using his world fastest gamer and real life experience to great effect.
Yeah, James Baldwin, they're one of these drivers that knows what it's like in the sim, knows what it's like in real life, having been a race winner in the Real World British GT Championship last year. Kevin Ziggy versus Martin Krunker. Krunker around the outside, they lean on each other. Ziggy gets run out wide, but Krunker always had the pace there. Eamon Murphy comes back at the pair as well, so poor old Kevin Ziggy, having done such a ripper job for effectively 55 minutes of the race, in these last 5 has been well and truly mugged, hasn't he? And there he is down in 8th place. He arguably deserved better than that.
He did, but he'll have enjoyed himself. He's put on a good race performance and a good marker to his rivals. And now, let's get it right. The race leader through the final corner. Over to you.
Here's what I prepared earlier. Yeah, David Tonizza then. He's going to win the opening round of GT World Challenge Esports Europe, the Sprint Series at Monza. An Italian driver, Italian car wins at a virtual Italian circuit. David Tonizza wins round 1 of the championship. Great drive by Josh Rogers. They're new to ACC in the Porsche. He takes 2nd. And Niels Naujoks from 8th on the grid is going to be 3rd in the BMW, a car that came alive really in that final third of the race. There is Niels Naujoks for 3rd place. Giovanni De Salvo should be 4th. There he is in the background up towards the line. And 5th, the last qualifier for the next round, is going to be James Baldwin. It's been a busy race for him. He fends off Krunker and Murphy and Ziggy. 6th, 7th and 8th. Darren King is going to be 9th. And on the road, the penalised Tobias Pfeffer is going to just about come through ahead of Lucas Muller, but Muller with the penalty applied there in the number 23 Mercedes, the Haupt Racing Team Schindler entry. He will inherit 10th place at the end of a really lively race at Monza.
Yeah, that has been everything we hoped it would be at the start of the broadcast, and more on top of it. Fantastic driving from the entirety of the grid, so well done to each and every one of the drivers. Drama throughout, a deserving and dominant, I must say, race winner in David Tonizza for the FDA Esports team up at the front of the field. But if this is even just a small indication of what the remainder of this 10 race, don't forget, championship season in the Sprint Series is going to be, I think we have got a year of very, very exciting racing ahead of us, haven't we?
I do not disagree. He says that with slight frustration that the real world has opened up and there are lots of clashes now, as you see Matteo Blotto go over the line. But I have certainly enjoyed this opening round of the championship. It has been fascinating to see such a high quality sim grid going toe to toe, because much of the esports commentary that we've done, Paul, in recent weeks, you and I, has been a mixture of sim and real world drivers. The real world drivers still learning about sims, but here these are drivers at the very top of their game, showing what they can do. And a very impressive effort by David Tonizza. Kept out of trouble early on, was able to work his way into the battle and seize the opportunity and then just control the race. Really, really impressive effort, that.
Yeah, it really was a fantastic performance. And also, I think it's worth a shout out to the entirety of the top 6 or 7, just to race so close and so fast and so hard together for such a long time, and relatively speaking, keeping it clean. It's very, very difficult to achieve, because in the real world, of course, you've got all the sights, the sounds, the smells, the sensations. You can look around. You've got more spatial awareness than you do in the virtual world. So those drivers gave each other a hard time, but respect and racing room as well, and respect to them for performing such a way.
Very definitely. Some hard battles, some fierce fights, but some good racing. And I know we did have quite a few penalties at the end, but they weren't all coming from the first corner, were they? It's a shame that 1 or 2 drivers were eliminated either because of incidents or because of copping those penalties. But very, very good start to the championship. Of course, mirroring what we have through ACC with an Asia and an American sprint series. And there's an endurance championship as well, 2 drivers per car that kicks off this weekend. So a lot of esports racing to look forward to.
Yeah, we have indeed. And just talking about the GT World Challenge Esports Europe Sprint Series that we're on today, of course, I've mentioned it a few times now, but we're next up at Paul Ricard on June the 11th. Then we follow that up with the Lungaro Ring on the 25th of June. The Brands Hatch Grand Prix Circuit plays host to the season on the 9th of July. Round 5 is Zandvoort on July the 23rd. Spa is the 13th of August. Misano, 10th of September. The Nürburgring Grand Prix Circuit on the 24th of September. Imola, 15th of October, and the championship finale at Barcelona on the 29th of October. And alongside the Americas, the Asian, and the Endurance Championships, all on the GT World YouTube channel. So do, if you're watching from home, give that a subscribe and stay up to date with what's happening, because we have got a bonkers amount of GT esport racing upcoming this year, haven't we?
We have indeed, and I think David Tonizza is ready for a word as well, our race winner, Paul, so he's all yours.
David Tonizza, race winner from round 1 of the GT World Challenge Esports Europe Sprint Series. Congratulations, you made that look very easy up front.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. Ciao, guys.
Ciao, my friend. How does that go for you then?
Well, it's really satisfying. The first part of the race was really tough, so I had to work really hard to achieve this win, and I need to say that the training behind this race was really hard.
Now, we saw you drop down a 3rd position in the opening stage of the race, and it seemed a little bit like you were hanging back from the front too, just seeing how the race unfolded and bedding your car in. Is that what you were doing, or was genuinely the pace at the front of the field quite high?
Well, of course, the pace of the field was insanely high, but before the start, I already knew that our car, the Ferrari 488, wasn't really great at the start, so I knew I was going to lose at least one position, but I lost 2, so I was a little bit frustrated, but I told me to focus, and I gained them back 5 or 6 laps later, so that was even more satisfying.
I heard you say there that they told you to focus. So just for our viewers at home, did you have a race engineer in your ear helping you with strategy during that race?
Yes, of course. In our Discord, there was Stefano, our coach, and Amos, our analyst. So the race was completely under control. We had a lot of data about the fuel and the tire wear. So during the race, we were keeping to talk each other, and we had every single information that we needed. So it's even more hard to race without an engineer, a coach, or an analyst like we do.
Fantastic to see the level of commitment that goes into a performance like this. And David, of course, being in the top 5, you're automatically invited to the next race, and it's Paul Ricard. How do you think your team, your Ferrari, and yourself are going to perform in France next time out?
Well, 2 years ago, during the first SRO Esports, I've qualified myself there on Paul Ricard on site, and I won that race. So I'm really confident about the next one, and I really like also the track. So of course, I'm really looking forward to race there.
Fantastic. And of course, that's the first time we met each other at Paul Ricard just 2 years ago. So David Tonizza, race winner for the FDA Esports team. Congratulations, an outstanding performance.
Thank you again, Paul. Ciao, everyone. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, David. Thank you. And a great performance, wasn't it, David, from David Tonizza there? Never really, after the first few corners, difficulties, never looked like he was going to be challenged. And in the end, I think took the race victory by 3.8 seconds.
Did a very, very good job indeed. There was nothing that got in the way as far as he was concerned. Once he'd hit the front, he was able to control the pace and did an excellent job. So David Tonizza, the class act in that race, and there are a lot of inevitably disgruntled drivers. There are always going to be, with 45 of them on the grid and only 5 qualifying for the next round and only 1 winner. But it has started the championship as I think we expected. A good race, a lively race. There'll be a few drivers with a point to prove next time out. But what a way to start a championship. Quality grid, quality racing. More of the same, please.
Yep, absolutely. That more of the same will be coming at Paul Ricard on June the 11th. So from myself, Paul Jeffrey, and from David Addison, everybody at home, thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.